Hello and welcome, I'm Ryan, aka Super Messiah. Today we are looking at panel 2, which is from the Star Citizen Town Halls, and this one's about a living, breathing world. So they started off the same panel as before. It was Tony Zurovec, Chris Roberts and Mark Skelton, and the first question which was asked was to do with travelling, and Tony Zurovec started with a brief explanation about the quantum travel. Now, we may or you may not know about the quantum travel. This is how you travel at 0.2 light speed, and it requires a bit more than just, clicking a button and then you're off. You've got to really allow the engines to spool up, and this is what your big engines are really for. And he went into a little detail about how you would use quantum travel. You would, like he says, you'd need between something like 30 seconds, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. They haven't really decided yet, but you need to set your course and align your ship in the right direction that you are planning on quantum travelling. It's not a jump, it's more just travelling a lot faster. And once you've done that, you would engage the engines to spool up, and then once they reach the optimum amount or level, then you'll be able to jump. This can be used as a way to escape a battle or maybe being attacked by pirates, but you can be stopped if someone gets in front of you. And Chris Roberts goes on to explain that if you're willing to take the hits from people shooting at you in the middle of a battle, then you may be able to get out of there. So for instance, if you're in between two pirates and they are closing in on you, firing at you, and you're taking a few hits, you may need to sort of up your power to your jump engines, which means you may lose more power to your shields, which is a bit dangerous. Or you could have half shields, half jump engine, and then take all your power from your weapons so that you are not going to use them because you're going to jump, so there's no need to engage in fighting with these pirates. But you'll have to wait a good 30 seconds maybe to get out of there, and obviously depending on how close these pirates are to you will depend on whether or not you can get out of there or not. And it did say that if you, let's say a ship drives in front of you, because they are blocking your way, your direction, there's no way you can jump because you'll just drive straight through them and you would both blow up, basically. So you've got to make sure that, nobody gets in front of you, you're able to head off in the straight direction, and you've got to have enough time to spool up your engines. But this could be a good tactic for stopping people. If you have something like the M50, and I was discussing this with someone on the comments, if you've got an M50, it could have the only role it could play is just to jump in front of people to stop them from escaping a battle. Because I'm sure if we're in a big battle with a lot of people, some people, if they don't want to be a part of it, or if they're getting a bit more damage than they want to, or they've lost a few weapons and hard points, or they're out of ammo, they'll probably want to get out of there and jump back to a safe place. So this M50 could be driving around looking out for people trying to jump and escape the battle and get in front of them, block them off. It could be a new role for someone to play. Tony Zurovec did explain that jump gates from system to system will be using wormholes. They're not the same as quantum travel. Quantum travel is when you're in a certain system or wherever in space, it's just a quick way of getting from one point to the next, rather than having to just, up your engines to full and hopefully you'll get there in enough time. Whereas obviously jump gates take you through to different systems, and they take you a long distance compared to quantum drive. Now, it was asked how long would it take to cross the system, and roughly I was speaking to, I think his name is Brad Freeman, who is our tech guru basically. Anytime I say something that isn't accurate, I can count on him to tell me what the actual answer is. So thank you, Brad. And we were discussing about how long it would take to get from point A to point B. And with the light speed travel, Tony Zurovec did actually confirm that it would take about 8 to 10 minutes, which is what we came up with. But also, obviously, this is within the timescale being shortened, because it's not going to be a one-for-one timescale like real life. So yeah, so you've got 8 to 10 minutes roughly. He did say excluding spool-up time, which however long that takes will depend. Chris Roberts also mentioned before that different ships will have different top speeds, so their quantum travel speed will be different depending on your ship, and most likely depending on the engines that you have within your ship. And while you're quantum travelling, Tony did explain that you can walk around your ship. You're not stuck to the cockpit. You can set your drive off, start jumping, and then get out your cockpit, go and, get changed, get ready for where you're going to, get your weapons ready, or maybe if you're dropping some cargo off, you can, you could do whatever you want to do. You can have a poo if you wanted to quickly jump into the toilet, but you cannot do anything externally, so you can't interact with the external environment, you can't fire your weapons, you can't EVA, because you are travelling so fast, so it would just be ridiculous if you were. So also, if you're using quantum travel, there is a chance that you will have to leave quantum travel if, say for example, you in your direction there's a big battle going on, or there's a group of pirates, or there's something blocking your path that you've chosen. Now the chances of it happening are probably more slim than likely, because obviously space is vast and if you pick a route, you can generally guarantee you'll get to that point without being interrupted. But if there's a big space battle going on, then you can't just go zooming through it, because you could damage your ship and break and blow up other people's ships by crashing into them. So the computer will have it, your ship computer will have its own brake, where if it sees something up ahead, it'll slow down to normal speed and you'll have to navigate around it, which could be dangerous, because if it is a big battle or if it is a group of pirates, to navigate your way around the upcoming difficulty. And hopefully they'll have some sort of alarm system telling you that there's something up in front and giving you a bit of time to get back to your cockpit, because if you are running around, especially if you've got a big ship like maybe the Carrack and you're in the cargo hold and suddenly you get stopped and pulled out of quantum travel, you're going to have to quickly make your way back to as quick as you can anyway, get back to the cockpit, and it could take a good couple of minutes to traverse the whole of your Carrack. Hopefully there'll be some sort of alarm system. They didn't mention there would be, but it would be good if there was. And Tony also mentions that things like jump points, which we have seen in the video, they will require a bit more dexterity rather than just, going straight off and getting to the end of the jump point. You'll have to twist down sort of a turning path. And also he says that some of them they'll have class ratings. So Chris Roberts explains like class 1 would be small, 2 maybe a bit bigger like a Constellation, and then a 3 might be something like a Carrack, your big freighters really. And he explained that there would be sort of like mountain passes, some are narrow and treacherous, some of them are big and wide, so they'll allow larger ships like capital ships to pass through them. Mediums, he says, is more like a Freelancer Constellation. Small is your single-seaters like Auroras and Hornets and so forth. But they'll also tie in like the small class 1 jumps may be shortcut style jumps, where they can be quite treacherous and you've got to really move your ship or manoeuvre your ship properly to get through them. But they are sort of shortcuts from one system to the next, compared to having to maybe take, instead of going directly from Stanton to Goss, you may have to go Stanton, Terra, Sol, Goss, and take a longer route round if you had a bigger ship, which, again, like I've said before, this will open up trading lanes, and they'll become natural because only bigger ships can go from one point to the next. So if you are worried and you're in a small class ship and you don't want to take the risk of going through these small jump points and running the risk of, either crashing while in jump or being attacked by pirates, you can just go along the trade routes. I'm sure they'll be policed. There'll be a lot more people on board, within the trading lanes, so it'll be a lot safer. Chris Roberts did explain that this will have different motives for different ships with different variations of cargo. So for things like perishable goods which need to get to a location quickly, if you have a big ship and you have to go the long way around to get to the system you're going to, the goods may perish before they get there, so you may need to swap it out for a smaller ship which you can take quicker jumps to get to, but deliver less cargo. So there are going to be a lot of thoughts behind your cargo, your ship choice, what you put on your ship, everything. He also explains that some jump points will fade. The information or the mapped routes that have been recorded previously will start to die off. Not all of these, just certain jumps, and they'll need to be remapped again. He did say this will open up a job for someone who has a ship that can map, or some hardware on their ship that can map jump points, and we'll have to go around to all these different jump points and just make sure that they keep them up to date, because they did explain that jump points will feel like natural veins and so forth, so they move, they change, and you'll need to remap them just to keep up with all the information that's changing. So he did say something about, buying the map data from the UEE Navigation Guild, which is pretty cool. So there's going to be something along those lines where you can, if you need to take a certain route, before you head off, if this route is unknown to your jump computer, then you may need to go to the UEE Nav Guild, buy these certain jump points, just so that you have them in your computer on your ship, so that your ship can do it without minimal input from you. Because without the data, you don't know where the dangers lie. So it's always good to have the information. Plus, if you have recorded some data, then you can sell this data and make some money just by recording jump points or remapping jump points for everyone to use. So again, in regards to jump points, Tony Zorovec explains that you can fail a jump. It's not like, you get in there and then you will eventually make it to the end. You can be brought out of the jump point if you get, if you take enough damage, or if you accidentally don't follow the wormhole itself, then you can be kicked out. You won't always just be killed. There is a chance you can be killed if you fail at it miserably. But he did say that, like if you've traversed 90% of the jump point, you will still be in that system that you are going to, but you'll be further away from the localized jump exit, and so you'll have to travel a bit more, maybe using quantum drive, to get back to a place where, where you're intending to go to. But also, if you only manage 20% of the jump, then you will end up somewhere where you may have to go back to the start of the jump point to try and get back into it again. It's not as likely that you'll be killed, but you will sustain damage to your ship, which may need to be repaired before you attempt the jump again. You don't know what could damage. There's so many components to your ship. Certain items that are vital for jump points may be damaged and you'll have to have repaired before you attempt the jump again. I don't know, this is just me speculating, but it sounds like it's a possibility. So the next question that was asked was, what will be available in the persistent universe? Tony Zurovec explains that your ship's HUD will have a galactic map, and within this map you can see every system. I suppose some of them will be ones you've discovered, or others will be, you buy the data, and eventually, over time, the commodity prices, the missions available within these systems will be available to see in this galactic map while sat at your computer, in your ship's cockpit or at the information screen. So this information will be transmitted by us as well. Chris Roberts said that he wanted it to be found and, the information to be brought by us, to be broadcasted by us, so when we find something it will then become visible on the maps. So each system will show its specific interests, for example stars, planets, moons, or the space stations, or asteroid fields, etc. And certain things will pop up for a little time, maybe things like comets or certain asteroid fields if they've been broadcasted by maybe a pioneer who has found them and sold the information. Because if as a pioneer, he explains that if you find a certain asteroid field, you can sell that information to a broker, sort of like the public information broker, who will then allow other people, real people and NPC people, to see this information, and then you'll start seeing mining ships arriving at this asteroid field and mining the commodities that are there. And I mean, for all means purposes, you can always keep this information to yourself. If you're in an organisation and you discover an asteroid field and you have a mining branch on your organisation, then you can just tell these people, just tell your organisation, they can come out and make the most of this asteroid field as much as they want. You don't have to sell the information, but I expect you can get money by selling the information. So it might be worth, if you are an organisation, to have a couple of people who are either interested in being a pioneer or an explorer and finding these things, or maybe hiring freelance explorers to always give you the first lot of information, maybe pay them a certain wage and they can go out and find this information and always tell you first. It could be a cool little way of playing it. So also on this sort of galactic map, you will occasionally, and probably quite often in certain areas, see maybe distress signals from players or NPCs who are transmitting and will be wanting rescue or even repair, depending on what's happened to their ships or to why they're there. So these things are going to be dynamic. It's going to update your map constantly, and if something new is happening, then it'll tell you. If it's not been sold, then it won't tell you. If the information hasn't been released. But then if it has been released, you will see this and it'll be set on your map for all to see. So the next question after that was, if you're in a system nowhere near landing zones, does this mean that you will just be on your ship for the entire time until you decide to land and go planetside? And Tony Zurovec explains that no, this won't be the case. There will be other things like space stations around which you'll be able to have sort of FPS, either action or maybe like a shop selling area where it's just in space. There'll also be medical research or mining facilities, military outposts, and these will feel a lot different to planetside locations. So you don't always have to go to a planet to be able to walk around the environment. You can land at all these different places or supply them with cargo, and it's all there to be explored. So if you do find a space station, go and have a look at it. You don't have to just wait until you find a landing zone. So after that, they explained about the modular building sets and how, I think the sort of question was along the lines of, how different will everywhere feel? Will it all be the same? Because they have this software that they can develop, that they use to create these areas or these locations. But they did say that they are using a completely different architectural style for each area. And we've seen this in the hangars, so you've got your self-land, your aero view, etc. All these different hangars have their own architecture to them and their own interiors because they are completely different styles. One is a very low-end one, and then you've got another one which is your high-end business one, and they all look completely different. But Chris also, Mark Skelton was explaining this, but Chris also wants the history of the planet, of the environment, to show in the environments. And all this written lore that we have been reading on Star Citizen from the writers, they want that to convey into the actual environments so that you have all this information and it makes sense. So you'll want to visit somewhere, like maybe a historical place. And the example they gave was the Terra statue. You'll go to this statue and there'll be a reason why you're there because you know the history behind it. So they also take historical architecture and mix it with the modern style, which is what we see a lot in reality. Certain buildings that are listed in London may have a skyscraper next door to it. It's very much going to be the modern or the new with the old. And also things like battle locations. If there's been a big battle going on, or there has been one in the lore in the previous years before we managed to play the game, you will see there'll be ruins there, and there'll be debris and all this sort of nonsense that comes with battlegrounds. And the way they do this is they get the base architecture style down, so they know exactly what the look they want, and then they'll add props, they'll add lighting, and they'll add themes to blend in, especially with the economy. And obviously if the economy is good in a certain area, it will look clean, it will look prosperous, there'll be people in suits walking around. But then if it's a bad economy in this area, which can change dynamically depending on, and we'll get onto that in the next one, depending on the economy of that planet, and so then you'll see vagrants walking around and people, causing trouble. So again, like I said, moving on, planets, are they static was the next question, and Matt Skelton says they evolve over time, as we said before, due to the economy. You can land on a planet that feels comfortable, and this is all through the art direction, which is Matt Skelton's job. So if it feels comfortable, then it's generally a good planet. It's a good, prosperous area, whereas it can feel uncomfortable if it's, in ruins. And also after that was weather. There was a question about weather, and he did say there'll be various weather and time of day cycles, and Terra at night time compared to daytime will look completely different. Also, if it's raining, I don't know about snow, it all depends on the system obviously, but there will be some snowy ice planets. And at night time, obviously all the dark dealings come in and you get all the dodgy characters, whereas daytime, it's all people in business suits all going to work, lots of security around. Now, Tony Zurevec did explain that planets will evolve short term, not just over time. So in 24 hours, everything can change. The population can decrease or increase. The capital wealth can decrease or vice versa. The employment can. And again, as things maybe increase, like for instance on Stanton, as work increases and things become more prosperous for them, then there's a chance you can see sort of smog, which is given out by the planets that are producing more products. So depending, it may not always look nice because they're doing well. It could look bad because, there's more factories. It's a complete, especially Stanton, with it being a complete factory world, it can look very low end but really be doing well. And again, with the time of day changing, if you arrive in a planet or on a landing zone which is in nighttime, and you're wanting maybe a couple of weapons to go off into a pirated area because you've got a drop to do or some cargo to deliver, then you may have to wait around for a little while for the shops to open. Now, as mentioned before, it's not going to be a one-to-one day to the real world, so 1 hour will not last an hour in-game. My assumption, which has been said by Chris before, is between sort of 4 and 6. So it will hopefully work out all right, and you won't be hanging around too long, but obviously it will need to be played a part in. If you're planning on going to a location, you know how long it'll take you to get there. Will you arrive at night? Do you need to plan it better so that you don't arrive at night, so you don't have to wait around for ages for the shops to open? But then again, if you arrive at night time and the shops are all shut, then maybe there's a more shady dealer somewhere else where you can get your item from, but you run the risk of being jumped by people trying to mug you and so forth. So lots to think about before you even just make a trip. So the question after that was to do with the economy and how much difference can one player make or can an organisation make. And the player will not make a great difference on his own because there is a 10-to-1 ratio. There's 10 NPCs to 1 real player. So Tony Zurevec also explains that, if you really want to make an impact, then you need to go to maybe a small populated area and work with your friends or an organisation and literally prevent every freighter from coming in and dropping off its cargo. And he said then you will begin to see the bend of the effect that you're having. But again, if you are doing this, then this planet or the factory that's expecting these goods or these commodities to arrive may hire mercenaries to take you out because they need these goods. So it's going to be difficult, but it may have an effect. And again, like a large battle in an area will have a much greater effect on the economy. Maybe the demand for commodities like ammo, fuel, and then yes, prices will rise. So if there are like 2 organisations going head to head, and these are huge organisations, then there's going to be a difference there. But one player on his own will not have any noticeable effect on the economy. He did say that organisations can actually, Chris Roberts said this, orgs can sort of stockpile items and then create a battle. And once, obviously, you hope that this organisation will win, and then you can sell these items that you have stockpiled at a higher premium because there is more need for them. So after that was, do I have to take jobs? How can I contribute to the PU? And Tony explains that you know, if you want to find a mission from the TDC, the trade department or whatever it's called, you can speak with an NPC and take a job that way. So you can do that, or you don't have to. You can just cruise through space, and then things will pop up on screen, maybe like a freighter being attacked, or, you know, you've got to help him, or the pilot has ejected and you've got to go and collect him. But you don't have to. You can just fly around. But the problem is, if you do not take on jobs, you will not be able to afford things like fuel, weapons, ammo, etc. So you will be more vulnerable. So it's always good to have jobs, but you can choose whichever one you want. And Chris explains that the beauty of this whole system is that there could be no one online, and the persistent universe will still operate. It'll still appear like a living and breathing world. Nothing's scripted. It's all sort of emerging from the universe itself. So they did say they're having a simulation that runs the whole thing, and it'll literally just continue even if no one's there. And again, one job maybe to protect a freighter can also lead on to more jobs for people who want to take out the freighter. So there's more than just, you know, if there's one person asking for help, then there's other people taking on jobs to fight against it. So there's lots of possibilities, all just for one job. So after that, they took some questions from the crowd, and the first one was, when someone discovers something and it's played out, will something else be generated later on? So for example, if maybe you're an explorer and you find a mining, or like an asteroid field, and then you sell that information, once all the commodities in this asteroid field are gone, you know, what will happen to it? Will it just float there, or will something else be generated in its place instead of? And yes, basically, if not enough, it all works in instances. So if not enough players go to a discovered area within a certain amount of time, it'll just be replaced by something else that will hopefully be more appealing. And then if it is, more players will go to it, and then it'll persist for a longer period of time. Again, it's like if someone bails out of a ship, their ship will not be there forever. If there's people still in that instance, then it will stay there. But once that instance is closed because no one has visited it for the last 5-10 minutes, then the ship will go and it won't be available to be found again. And going back to a previous sort of answer, someone asked, how will all the variables of the game be managed? Because there's so much to the game that you kind of think, how can one team control everything? And it is, like Chris Roberts said, it's going to be a full simulation in the background for the universe that will generate missions and persist things and non-persist. It'll keep running in the background regardless of whether people are there or not. But they can shut down, say, for example, the economy simulation, and people won't realise, you know, if they need to do maintenance on it, people won't realise, and, you know, it'll be a fluid thing. So if there is issues, it's not like everything's just going to crash at once and we'll all see it happening. It will be programmed, and so they can tweak it and alter it depending on what needs to be done. Now, this is pretty much it now. There was lots more said about all these things. I've picked up on all the information that is more game orientated rather than the background technical stuff, because it doesn't make any sense to me, and I was there trying to make notes on it, and I thought, even when I explain it, you'll tell I'd have no idea what's going on. So it's definitely worth checking out, but it is obviously an hour long, so I've only picked out the best bits that I think are most important. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Again, as always, I like to hear what you say, and I try and respond to everybody. Occasionally I may not be able to because it may get lost in more comments, but if I haven't responded, just keep sending it and I'll finally respond to you. But yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I want to thank all the patrons who are pledging and helping us create these videos, and also to our new Patreon, Deontay. Thank you, my good man. Much appreciated. Please like the video, share it if you can, and I shall see you in the verse.